Owen doesn't have a friend.
That's good. That was good. Good one. I like your voice.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back.
Scary good impression, actually.
He's trying to kill me.
I don't like how good that
is. You want to put me away? Anyway, welcome back to FilmograFeed. That is Caleb Coho.
And that is Caleb Open.
And we are starting our new series directed by the trash man, the man who all can spare an egg for us in these trying times, Daniel DeVito. And we're starting with his first film, Throw Momma from the Train. Before we actually get into the film, Coho, you had never seen this before, correct?
I have not. I've actually never seen a film directed by Danny DeVito. I've seen many of his produced work. I think he's actually a very talented film producer, especially in the late 90s. But I've never seen him direct a movie until now. So this will be interesting.
Yes. And I have seen a few of his films. I've seen this one before. This is a movie my dad really likes. Dr. Soul really likes this one. He and I will quote Owen doesn't have a friend out of context to each other a lot. So yeah. But before we get into Throw Momma from the Train, we're doing context. And I'm the one providing the context today.
I'm excited.
So I don't really have much context about the actual production of the movie. But
I got that for you.
Yeah, you've got that. I have the context in terms of where Danny DeVito career kind of came from. So he was in the theater scene in the 70s in different theater classes where in college he met one of his buddies, or a man who would become one of his buddies, son of a famous actor, Michael Douglas. And they became very in tune. And then when Michael Douglas was producing a little film called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, he cast Danny DeVito in it as the character Martini, which, let's just say, DeVito's performance in that is very underappreciated. He's actually super good in that movie.
He's very good.
But that is where Danny DeVito met another fellow by the name of Christopher Lloyd. And the two of them would then work together on the TV show Taxi, which is where Danny DeVito, post One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, would kind of get a lot of his notoriety, and audiences would really kind of come to know who DeVito was because of Taxi. He won a few Emmys for Taxi, actually. And he's very good on Taxi. I haven't actually watched a ton of Taxi, but I've seen...
Which of course, on Taxi is where he meets Andy Kaufman, who he then goes on to produce and star in the biopic of his life.
Yes.
Hopefully we get to talk about at some point on the show in some series, some way. But
I kind of almost regret it would have been too long of a series, but we should have made it produced by Danny DeVito instead of just directed.
Getting to talk about Out of Sight and Man on the Moon back to back would have been wild.
Technically, could we change it? Could we just make it?
I don't know if we can change it mid thing. We already announced what it was. I would say the better way to do it is I think it's more important in the context of Jim Carrey's career, and when we eventually
we will do Jim Carrey at some point.
We will do Jim Carrey on the show at some point. So circling back to when we do Jim Carrey, that will be the highlight moment of that run is doing Liar Liar, Truman Show.
Oh yeah, heck yeah. But anyway, that is where he meets Andy Kaufman, and he wins a few Emmys for that. Then he gets into a few movies, most probably at that period, most notably Romancing the Stone, where he plays the bad guy in that.
Once again, the Michael Douglas connection.
Yeah, and once again, Michael Douglas connection. And in my opinion, he's the best thing in the movie. I think the movie itself is actually kind of mid. He's very good in it, though. And then this is where we get to him directing Throw Momma from the Train. Do you have any background on the production of that?
There's really not much of the production of this. I don't have any research into why he wanted to direct or what made him want to do this story.
Well,
the making of this movie,
I can actually say he did before this direct a great little TV movie called The Ratings Game, which is about a mobster who basically rigs the Nielsen boxes so that his TV show gets better ratings than the World Series. And it's very funny. And that's also where he starts working with his wife, Rhea Perlman, who he works with later in this series. Best known as Carla on Cheers.
Okay. So the only real thing I have about this movie in the production of it is that in order to facilitate the making of this film, Warner Brothers and Orion Pictures in the summer summer 1987 had to make a trade in order to make these movies possible.
Oh.
So in order to do this, Warner Brothers had to strike a deal, which was made by a guy named Larry Bresner, who produced both movies, I believe, and is most well known as the producer of the film Arthur. He had to facilitate a trade because Warner Brothers wanted to make Arthur 2 on the Rocks. And in order to make Arthur 2 on the Rocks, they had to trade for the rights to make Arthur because Arthur, they realized they didn't have the rights to. Bresner had the rights, and they were tied up with Orion. But Orion had a script called Throw Momma from the Train that required the rights to Strangers on a Train, which was owned by Warner Brothers. So in order to facilitate the making of the movie, they had to trade the rights to Arthur for the rights to Strangers on a Train. I think there's a real big winner in that trade, where I think imagine Warner Brothers being like, all right, we will give up Strangers on a Train in order to make Arthur 2, which we can make a bank sequel, bang for our buck. No one's making anything about Strangers on a Train. And they turn around and make one of the biggest hit comedies of the year and Throw Mama from the Train, as well as own the rights in perpetuity to one of Hitchcock's most classic films. And Warner Brothers is stuck with the rights to Arthur and Arthur 2 on the Rocks.
Which, like, Arthur is very overrated. The original Arthur is kind of... The movie itself is fine. I think Dudley Moore is actively bad in that movie, is my take on it. But he was nominated for an Oscar, which I think is really dumb and weird.
The only thing I've ever seen Dudley Moore in, and I don't think is awful, is a different remake of a different 80s movie, or a different 80s remake called Unfaithfully Yours with Albert Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not bad. He's kind of fun.
You know who plays that role in the original?
I think we talked about this, but I don't remember. Is it Walter Brennan?
No, it's Rex Harrison.
Rex Harrison. Okay.
And it's the best Rex Harrison has ever been.
That is a cool take because I think Rex Harrison is an overrated actor.
I know it's a cool take, but I mean, it is an impressive performance from Rex Harrison, who I have never been impressed by.
I mean, sure. No. To me, that's like saying like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang's the best performance for Robert Downey Jr. It's probably a correct statement, but like it's not the thing. No, everyone's going to necessarily call.
I don't even know if I agree with that take.
It's not my own personal take. I'm just saying I think that's like.
Like I think we definitely go like Chaplin above Kiss Kiss. I think I would maybe even go Iron Man above Kiss Kiss.
Well, I go Iron Man above Kiss Kiss.
And I would probably go Tropic Thunder above Kiss Kiss.
I would go Iron Man. I go Iron Man 3 above Kiss Kiss.
Well, that's you being a child.
Well, no, Iron Man. No, I think the performance in Iron Man 3 is maybe his best performance as Tony Stark.
That's fair.
Debatably, it's a great performance.
I think the first Iron Man. For me,
I would still go the first, but yeah.
So electric and kinetic about his performance.
Well, yeah. I mean, also his performance in Endgame is really good too. But like, he's not like the focus of that one as much, so it's hard to be like.
I mean, I've never quite understood he's good. He is very good in Endgame, but it's like
I really like.
People were like, he should get nominated for an Oscar.
I remember there was like talk of that like being a thing, but it was never a real thing. But it was like, oh, this is a possible thing, and I remember being like, that'd be cool. Like, I'd be okay with that. But like,
I think it's just it's comic book people being like, our movie make billions of dollars, but we also want them to be at the awards. We don't care about these other movies. We want them to be at the awards. I don't know what voice I'm doing.
You started out John Mulaney, and now I don't know what you're doing. But like, I don't think Robert Downey Jr. being nominated for Avengers Endgame would have been a bad thing. I don't think it would have been as deserved as anyone else who was nominated, and a lot of people who weren't nominated. But like, I wouldn't have like cried foul if they had nominated him for Avengers Endgame and Best Supporting Actor. Like, I would have been like, okay, like. I'd be like, all right, fine. There's the career nomination for him for playing one of the most iconic film superheroes of all time.
Fair.
But now he's in Oppenheimer. We're going to cover that eventually, too. Anyway.
Fair enough. Well, now it's time to throw Momma from the train. This is a movie. I don't know. Where do we want to start? Just like with the general plot, or
I'd say let's dive right in. Where I saw Strangers on a Train before I saw this, which I think is the right way to approach this film.
Yes.
I saw Strangers on a Train months ago, and I enjoy it. I think it's a solid Hitchcock thriller. I know that some people put it at the top, and I get that, but it's not.
I think it's top 10, not top 5. But
it's in my top 10 for sure. Like easily top 10. Like it's a great Hitchcock thriller. But like when you're a guy who has made as many all-timers in your resume as he has.
A-tier Hitchcock, not S-tier Hitchcock.
Right, and S-tier Hitchcock is like 7 movies deep. So you're like, it's in the top 10 because it's top of A-tier. But like,
yeah.
But no, I like Strangers on a Train. I really like how they play with that idea here a lot. I think taking the structure of Strangers on a Train and being like, look how fucking easily this could have gone wrong. And then been like, well, what if it did go wrong? And that's like a really fun screenwriting exercise that just turned into a really fun comedy.
I mean, yeah, no, because I mean, there's something with a lot of Hitchcock movies. There's a lot of like laughter behind the terror, and you're so focused on the terror that you don't. But there is a lot of humor behind a lot of these situations. At the very least, dramatic irony. So usually, you can take most Hitchcock movies and just turn the dial a little bit up and turn them into comedies. And I think like that's the thing that is very interesting about this movie is that you can just change it just a little bit, and you can make it this comedy. You change Bruno from this sociopath to just a lonely guy who wants a friend. Like, DeVito is just so funny in this because he's so pathetic.
He is. He is really funny in this, and I love the specific, very hyper specific character he has put himself into. Because like DeVito could have very earnestly done this role so differently. He could have absolutely stepped into this part and been like, look at this caricature, look at this over-the-top version of this guy I'm doing. Oh, he's a little too creepy or whatever. He plays this guy with such an earnest, like, sincerity, where he's like, I just want a friend element. But also just the longing for acceptance is so good. I think my favorite part of, like, interaction between him and Billy Crystal, who I love Billy Crystal. He's never been bad in a fucking
I was watching this movie and just like, this man is Caleb Coho. You are Billy Crystal. Like
I love Billy Crystal.
Yeah. It's uncanny.
He has never been bad in anything. Like I was thinking about it, I'm like, I don't think I could pinpoint a specific film of any kind where Billy Crystal is bad and the worst part of the movie. Because even if he's in a bad movie, Billy Crystal is the most fun element of the bad movie. Like Parental Guidance is not a great film, but like he is so fun in Parental Guidance.
He is very, very fun in Parental Guidance.
I think that's the thing for him, where it's like, even if you like go through his whole career, and you're like, this thing's not great. Billy Crystal's the most entertaining element of it. Like, I guarantee you, Analyze That is probably a horrendous film, and he's probably having the time of his life on it, and you can see it in every second of the screen. But my favorite element.
I haven't seen Father's Day, but I've heard he's not great in it. But you never know.
I don't know if I believe that. Like, I just think Billy Crystal is a guy who's just so dialed in
Mhm.
to what he's doing. Like he's got a very specific skill set, and the best filmmakers are able to take that skill set and then help him unlock a higher level of it. It's the same to me. I think there are certain actors who have a very specific niche that they're good at, that they get in that lane and they're really good at it. I really enjoy watching them do that thing. But they also have it in them to be unlocked to even more interesting potential. It's Tom Cruise, it's Billy Crystal, it's George Clooney, it's actors like that where I think, yeah, when you're in the pocket, you're pretty good. I enjoy you. But when people like Jason Reitman or Tony Gilroy or Alexander Payne come along and unlock that charisma and channel it into a totally different kind of character and funnel your perspective of that charm, it's really cool. So like it's the reason why When Harry Met Sally is like the greatest Billy Crystal performance of all time, is because he gets to do all the Billy Crystal things and then also gets unlocked into a new perspective of it.
Yeah.
Or like Monsters Inc. Like he just is so perfect as Mike Wazowski. But in this, I really love his entire character's dilemma of just I wrote something, my wife took it and then divorced me, and now she's famous and I can't come up with anything because I'm so consumed with jealousy and bitterness over it. It's such a fun place to start with this character so that like he's grading papers and he's miserable being a writing teacher. And my favorite joke in the movie is when Danny DeVito's like he hands him, he's like, "Did you like my story?" He's like, "No, it's a murder mystery and it's 5 pages long." And he's like, "Well, what was wrong with it?" He's like, "There's only two characters, and one of them kills one of them on page 2." It's great. I love that joke, and I think Billy Crystal and Danny DeVito play off each other so perfectly as these two guys.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It's like, yeah, their comedic chemistry is like just top notch in this. Yeah. And then I love the way in which like Strangers on a Train is actually like implemented into this, into where it's actually just a movie in the story. And Billy Crystal's like, go watch a Hitchcock movie. And Owen watches Strangers on a Train, and he thinks that's what Larry is, that Larry just wants him to swap murders.
Yeah,
For real.
I love that.
I
And
love
that
that
almost
it's like based on a misunderstanding.
Oh yeah, and I think I saw that part of the movie, and it goes back to the Hitchcock conversation from earlier, where it made me wonder. I'm like, how many Hitchcock movies are there that are based on a very specific scenario happening to get the specific story out of it? That if you had done a throw mom from the train treatment on it, it would have been funny. Like, imagine you could do this with Rear Window, where it's like very specifically he sees a murder, but very clearly you could have flipped that around and been like, from the perspective of everyone else, it's just a guy creeping on the neighborhood because he's paranoid someone's killing someone, and
I
Danny
mean,
DeVito's now a creep on the neighborhood.
The Burbs is basically just Rear Window, but a comedy.
Sure, but like I love that idea of that like
Yeah.
saying like or like Rope. Imagine you watch this Rope, or you do Rope as a comedy.
You could
Like
totally do Rope as a comedy.
like I feel like
You
there's so many
guys,
Hitchcock movies.
what?
There's so many Hitchcock movies that
Mhm.
like operate in that like very specific scenario happening, and it's a tightrope act of a movie every time. So to do what they do with Throw Mama for the Train, I think I love that perspective, and I was like, I wonder if they just what if DeVito picked any other Hitchcock movie? Like, what if he watched The Man Who Knew Too Much? What would he come back to him with? Or if he watched Vertigo or Psycho, like what would he come back to him with? I would be so excited to know.
North by Northwest could really work as a comedy.
A Steve Martin comedy specifically. North by
Yeah.
Northwest as a Steve Martin comedy in the 90s would have been tight.
I actually just realized you can kind of make an argument that The Man Who Knew Too Little with Bill Murray is actually, even though it sounds more like a comedic version of The Man Who Knew Too Much, it's kind of a comedic version of North by Northwest. Have you ever seen The Man Who Knew Too Little?
I am not.
It's basically like proto Game Night,
That's
where
dope.
Bill Murray plays this guy who is coming to visit his brother in London, and his brother is like at this like fancy dinner party and doesn't want his Bill Murray to be there because Bill Murray's Bill Murray. So he asks him, and it's kind of the more naive, obnoxious Bill Murray type character. So he says, "Okay, why don't you go do one of these like tours that they do where it's like, they put you in this theatrical experience where all throughout London people are playing these characters. And so Bill Murray does that, but he accidentally wanders into this real plot of espionage and a plan to assassinate the prime minister. And it's very underrated. I enjoy it a lot.
That would be quite funny. I
It-
can buy that.
It's a fun time. I actually really like it. Anyway, we got off on a tangent. But yeah, so Owen, Danny DeVito, kills Billy Crystal's wife, and then he expects him to kill his mother. And I want to talk about Anne Ramsey because before the show, you kind of mentioned her. I think that she is phenomenal in this. I think she is playing this character with such precision because the purpose of this character is you need to feel that she is the most evil person, like maybe not evil, but most hateable person on the planet. You need to feel the absolute rage for her, and she nails it. She is so good at this, and she does it so perfectly, I find. I think this is an incredible comedic performance.
I think she's good. Like, I don't know if I go as far as you do. Like, I just think I think she's kind of fun. Like, I think that she has some really funny lines, and I think that she is good at being this, like, very, like, caricature of a performance that you need for this specific character. Like, she's very over the top, and she's very, like, dedicated to that one, like, elemental performance, and I think she's very fun. I don't know if I don't know. Again, like, it's 1987 is a year that I'm not deeply familiar with, so I can't like do the thing where you're like where you're like, oh my god, you better have answers for who you put in her place. But it's like I just like I think it's weird that she got nominated for an Oscar. Not that she's like not just because it's out of pocket for the Oscars to go that way, just because I feel like that's not a performance I would look at and say that deserves an Oscar nomination. But like I think she's fun. She's entertaining. I don't think she's bad. I had to go look up an interview with her after to see like how different she is from that performance, like just in regular life. And her voice is the same. She has the exact same voice.
I mean, but you watch The Goonies, and her voice isn't like that.
Like I went and watched an interview with her for like the like whatever. She sounds like identical to her character in this. It's just like her face is like not as contorted or like she's not as like shrill, but she's like it's like she sounds very similar. So I was just like, oh okay. So she's doing a lot to get here. It's just it's not. I don't know if it's a performance that I would necessarily nominate, but I do think that she is entertaining. I don't think she's bad at all. It was jarring at first. It was definitely a thing where I was like, whoa. Like, it took me out of the movie when she first came in, and I had to, like, warm up to the performance.
That's fair. I just think I'm just on her wavelength the second she gets it. Like I think she's just so exactly what this role needs. And she just gets all the laughs in the movie for me. Well, not all, because I think DeVito and Crystal certainly get laughs. But she gets the biggest laughs in the movie for me. At the very
I guess it's fair. Like, to me, I think the parts of the movie that I laugh harder at are, like, DeVito and Crystal's different interactions with each other, and, like, I guess this says a lot about me in terms of what part of the movie I like the most, but, like, my favorite part of the movie is the stuff with, like, Billy Crystal when he's like, "Oh god, I'm going to jail." Like, when he's, like, in, "Oh god, I'm going to jail," and he's, like, goes to his girlfriend's house, and he's like, "It's my ex-wife," and she's like, "Oh my god, okay, what's going on now?" And he's like, "She's dead!" And she's like, "Oh my god." And he's like, "And they're gonna think I killed her." And then she's like, "Whoa, did you kill her?" And he's like, "I don't have an alibi." And it's like that whole thing where it starts to him being like, doing the Billy Crystal thing, like, I'm fucked. Like I'm going to jail. Is the stuff that entertained me the most. And then like once he's like in Anne Ramsey's house and like DeVito's like, "You gotta work up to killing her because I killed your wife." Like that part is where the movie kind of waned a bit for me where it's like more like in the where it gets that like in the belly of the beast, less DeVito, more Crystal and Anne Ramsey interactions. It loses me a little bit. just because I feel like those two flavors of the movie don't quite jive as well as DeVito and Anne Ramsey do.
See, I agree with what you're saying, but not for the reasons you're saying it.
Sure.
My big issue with this movie, and I think it has to do with the fact that this was DeVito's first theatrical film, and I'm guessing the studio was probably a little more hands-on with it. I wish this movie was darker. Like, I don't think this movie quite needed to go just a little bit farther with it, and just needed to be like a little bit more intense. And I think that's what his later films do, is they feel a little more intense than this. All of like the slapstick just feels a little too like goofy and whimsical. Like there's a little too much undercutting of it. I also don't love the ending. Like
I don't like the ending.
Yeah.
I'll full on say I do not like the ending.
I don't like the ending either. I think like just kind of giving us a happy ending is really dumb for this movie, where we should have gotten like a great dark comic ending. Would have been like an ironic dark, like I think like Crystal ends up in jail or something, is like he doesn't do anything wrong, he ends up in jail or something, where there's like an ironic flavor to the comedy rather than what it is.
I think what would have been the ending I would have been more happy with is I would have really liked that the wife didn't actually die. I loved that reveal and that joke where it's like, oh my god, DeVito didn't actually kill her. But I wanted Crystal to go through with his end. Like actually kill Anne Ramsey. And then have the reveal that DeVito didn't do anything wrong. So then Crystal goes to jail.
Yeah.
And then you have the producer's ending of him in jail writing "Throw Mama from the Train" and signing books in jail or something. So he gets the level of notoriety that he wants, but he's behind bars. I think that's the ending I would have gone for personally.
That would have been great. I love that. That would have worked. I love
That's
that.
what I thought was about to happen. And then when "Throw Mama from the Train" is published and he and DeVito are just both successful like people and they get what they want and everything's good. And it's like it feels like they do the producer's ending but sincerely.
Yes.
And I am not a fan. I don't like doing the producer's ending sincerely.
I don't like the ending. I'm with you. I don't like the ending.
The person who I want to shout out really hardcore, because I don't get to see this actress in a lot of movies, I know her very much from TV, is Kate Mulgrew. She is the lead of Star Trek Voyager.
Oh,
from the 90s.
Is she Janeway?
Is Captain Janeway. Yep, she is Captain Janeway, and that is probably the most boatman Star Trek show to ever exist, ever, if you've never seen it. Because it is... All right, Boat, here's the concept of Star Trek Voyager. Star Trek Voyager is about a ship that is... a Star Trek ship that is crashed in space, and the entire point of the show is to get home.
I thought that was Space Nine.
No, Deep Space Nine is set at a space station on the verge of a wormhole. They guard a gateway through the neutral zone and stuff like that. So Star Trek Deep Space Nine is like, we are like the border patrol of Star Trek. So it's the most boring Star Trek. But Voyager is like one of the most interesting ones because you're doing space exploration, but instead of it being like, look at this strange new world that we're now trying to do and go out and find, it's these are places we need to get to the next piece. We need to get home. It's like a Star Trek show in reverse. And it's really cool. I feel like you'd really like Voyager. But Kate Mulgrew is the lead, and she is brilliant. She is really good on Star Trek Voyager. I'm one of the people who think Captain Janeway is arguably the third best Star Trek captain, close to second. Like Picard, Kirk, and Janeway all operate in the same sphere of like, these are the best characters to come out of Star Trek in the captain chair. And Janeway makes only one appearance in the movie. She makes a cameo in Nemesis as an admiral, and it's like giving Picard orders. And it's like, that's a really cool cameo, and I love it to death because we get to see her become an admiral and get home and shit. Like, that's awesome. But like, Kate Mulgrew is such a fun performance in this. To be the ex-wife, the smarmy, like, oh, look how great I am. And they're like, and how do you think your husband feels about everything? And she's like, I don't really care about what he feels. And everyone in the audience is like, yeah. And Billy Crystal's like, fuck you. Like, it's so good. Like, she does for me what I think Anne Ramsey sort of does for you, not to the same level where it's like I would nominate Kate Mulgrew at all, but, like, she definitely crushes the part where it's like, "Now I completely am on Billy Crystal's side that you suck, and, like, I'm okay with you dying." And, like, that's the thing I guess that's actually probably one of my biggest conceits with issues with the Anne Ramsey thing is that, like, I don't like Anne Ramsey as a mother. And I'm with the movie on that wavelength where it's like, yeah, she's a bad mom and she's really shitty to her son. But also, I'm not necessarily to the point where I'm like, yeah, kill her. Like, I'm not on the movie's wavelength in that regard. On the same way we're on the Crystal Train, I'm like fully on board where I'm like,
To be
I
fair,
hope Davida kills Kate Mulgrew.
I don't think the movie is necessarily like she deserves to die. I think the
Sure.
movie is more like you need to understand why if you had lived with this person as long as Owen had, you would A, probably want to kill her by that point, and B, probably be a little effed up in the head.
I mean,
And
that's true.
I think she sells that, in my opinion.
No,
Um,
I guess that's a fair point. But yeah.
mhm.
And I I I did think it was I guess it was a weird thing for me. I don't know why, but I was watching through it and then Oprah is like the show.
Mhm.
And it was like a weird time period capsule thing that like throws you back. We're like, oh yeah, Oprah the show was like the biggest show in the history of television. Like that was like the shit.
I mean, for a long time too, because
A very long time.
I mean, it's actually very funny. Oprah, the show, plays a very important part in like this movie, and then also Ocean's 13.
It does, doesn't it?
Do you remember how Oprah comes back into play on Ocean's 13?
I do remember how Oprah plays in Ocean's 13.
I do
But
love that cameo. I
I
think
do
that's
love that cameo too.
a fun cameo of Andy
There's
Garcia.
a lot of great cameos in Ocean's 13. That
Ocean's
movie is really
13
good.
Ocean's 13 is just a great movie. You know what we should do? We can do franchises on this show, right?
And we should we haven't just like expressly said, but we could. Why not?
Why not do the full Oceans franchise?
Oh,
Start
like
with
the Sinatra, the three in the middle,
Sinatra,
and
the
Ocean's
three
8.
Soderberghs, and Ocean's 8.
We could. That'd be a fun little run. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Like it'd
That'd be a
be
fun one to do.
yeah.
Like, cause like I think like once we start like opening up the door on franchises, we need to be careful on which ones we do because I know what'll happen with us is like once we get to a franchise and we do one, eventually it'll get to the point where it's like, all right, we're about to end the show. I'm forcing Boat to watch the entire MCU with me again and do the MCU. Like I know that's exactly where we'll get by the end.
I'm not gonna
But
let
like
you do that.
I would kill. Well, actually, what would be fun is to approach the MCU on a phase by phase basis over time,
That's fair.
where you do phase one and then we stop for a while, and then eventually we circle back, phase 2, circle back, phase 3, circle back, like,
That's fair.
that'd be fun.
But like
Because
Ocean
I think it'd be
would be
fun.
great
Yeah,
because like talking about the Sinatra one would be fun.
true.
Talking about the original would always be fun. And then I want to talk about 13 because that is just a
Yeah.
movie I feel really passionate about. And
Ocean's 13 is a film I sometimes like more than Ocean's 11. And
I think Ocean
I'll tell you exactly why. 2 words.
Al.
Al Pacino.
Here's the thing. I will always love Ocean's 11 more.
Yeah, it's better.
I get so much enjoyment out of Ocean's 13. Like that is just because it's Home Alone in a casino. That's what it is. They're not trying to steal anything. They're just effing around. And like you need to understand, it is so deeply ingrained into my brain because of early 2000s kids movies that one of the funniest things that you can do is just make a movie where people are pulling pranks the entire time. Big Fat Liar, Max Keeble's Big Move, Cheaper by the Dozen. Pranks, the movie, are one of my favorite genres, unironically.
What I also love about Ocean's 13, and like my biggest thing. The last thing I'll say, and then we can move off Ocean's talk, and we'll save it for the podcast. But My favorite thing with franchises is when they do a natural forward progression in the series,
Yes.
with the characters and escalate it in a way where like the world reacts and grows with each movie, and it makes sense with the last one. And what 13 does really well is take everything for the first two, naturally have escalated to this point, and also just on a structural level have been we've done two heist movies essentially.
Mhm.
So now, how can we subvert the expectations of doing a third heist? What if we're not trying to steal anything? We're trying to we're not even trying to break in. We're trying to get into this thing to force someone out. It's
Mhm.
like you're like reverse heist movieing the third one. That's why Ocean's 13 is really fun. It's a reverse heist movie. And that's what's sick about it. In the style of a heist movie, which is why it's awesome. And also, like, speaking of heist movies, someday, somehow, eventually, we'll circle all the way back and get to Nolan at some eventual point. I know we will because and we'll do it with Scully or something. But we specifically are gonna have a really fun conversation on Inception at some point in our career.
Wait, why?
Oh, just I rewatched it and I wanna do an episode with me and you trying to break down the physics and the mechanics of Inception and try to answer all the questions about Inception. Because I think that movie's brilliant. I think that's like one of the most incredibly creative blockbusters of all
Are
time.
you with me now? And that's the original screenplay winner of that class.
Yeah, I'm with you. I go that one.
I'll take it. I'll take
I
it.
go that the winner. I go
You
that
used
one.
to be against me on that.
Yeah, I used to go with The Kids Are All Right. I used to think The Kids Are All Right was better.
Mhm.
But, like, as a better writing. But yeah, Inception's a better written movie.
All right, fair enough. Well, back to throw Momma from the train. Do we have really anything more to say in the actual
There's
movie?
really not that much. That's the thing that I'm interested about with DeVito is I feel like these are going to be a lot shorter episodes because these movies don't. I don't think they're very long movies, and I
No.
don't think they're very dense movies. I think every movie he's going to kind of make is going to be a light, fun sort of comedy or dramedy or some weird element to it. But if they're all like this, where it's like, or like Albert Brooks's are, where they're all pretty short, concise, in and out, to the point, really cleverly made, fun little comedies. So in for a delightful little run, which eventually will come back to Albert Brooks. Like that's the point of doing this is doing Albert Brooks. So
I will say, don't expect them all to be like that because I haven't seen it, but I know Hoffa is like that's DeVito making like a historical epic. So
how long are we talking on Hoffa?
220. So like not
Okay.
forever.
Okay, because
Like,
I watched double the length of that recently with the same character, and that movie rips. So that's a very different.
I was just
director,
saying,
though,
don't
so.
expect all of his movies to be 90-minute breezes. Is more what
Oh no, I don't mean like super short breezes. I just mean like in general. Like I don't think there's gonna be too dense or insane of a dive that needs to go down.
I mean, I'm gonna be very curious for next week because
I'm pretty interested in that. Too.
next week is we should. Is there anything we need to wrap up with DeVito?
I don't think we have much. I don't think we have much else. There's nothing to rank. This is automatically number one for both of us at this point. So.
Yeah.
I don't have much else in this one. I would just say I love Billy Crystal, and the more series we could do where Billy Crystal is a person we talk about, I would love.
Honestly, we should do Rob Reiner.
Rob Reiner's really long.
We could find a way to condense it.
If we're able to condense it to like the Castle Rock era of like his like Stand By Me to or this is Spinal Tap to like American President era, like that I'd be fine with that. But
and
like
we wouldn't do American President for obvious reasons. But
well, yeah, or A Few Good Men. We've already done those episodes,
yeah.
so like it would just really be a way to do like.
I do want to force you to watch North though, because that's just something you have to experience the insanity of.
I wonder if there's a way to do more Crystal without going for long. I wonder if we should probably do Nora Ephron or something.
Honestly, yeah, we could do, and we do written by her.
Yeah, written by, because she writes all of her own movies, doesn't she?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, because then we get things she's directed and things she hasn't directed, but it's all things she's written. I'm fine with that. Written by Nora Ephron. I feel like that's what we would do, because we should be honest, we should be covering more women on this show. Eventually, we'll do when Gerwig has more movies. We'll circle back to Gerwig.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what I'm
Good.
listening to.
Well, we'll look into that. But next week, we are breaking down War of the Roses, which, not to tip my hand, but currently I consider that to be my favorite Danny DeVito movie. I love it. I'm excited to talk about it. Yeah.
I am interested in what his directing career looks like from here. Because it's the War of the Roses, and then it's Hoffa, and then it's
Matilda.
Matilda.
Mhm.
And then it's
Death to Smoochie, and then it's Duplex.
and then Duplex. Which Duplex is the only one he's not in that he directs, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And then bonus episode. We didn't tell anyone about this. We're doing the Lorax.
No, we're not.
How do we do the Lorax? How do we make it work to talk
Legitimately, I think Dr. Seuss adaptations would be really interesting.
It would be fun.
We do.
How many? We have 2 versions of the Grinch to talk about already.
There's only 5 movies to talk about because it would be the Grinch, the original, well, the 2000s,
Terry Grinch,
Cat in the Hat, Horton Hears a Who, the Lorax, the Grinch,
and the animated Grinch. Oh, yeah. I'd be so down for that. I would actually be very down to talk about the only movie from 2018.
Honestly, like, depending on how early we finish in the year, that would be like a nice like 5-ender, and we end on a Christmas movie.
Yeah, we start and end on Christmas.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I think we haven't pitched this, but like I think what we need to do is take a break in December and do 3 weeks of Capper Stewart. Do the 3 Capper Stewarts so that we end on It's a Wonderful Life.
That would actually be great.
And then we knock out our little Capper Stewart trilogy that I've talked about forever as being a thematic trilogy. And we get to talk about 3 of the greatest movies of all time, 3 movies that we love a lot, and then wrap it up on It's a Wonderful Life on Christmas, which is a top 5 movie of all time. So
well, anyway, next week we're Warring with Roses. Be sure to tune into that. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Caleb Coho. Thank you to Video Store for hosting us. Have a good one.